But at this point, what I want to do is go into an FAQ. So I'm going to be a little bit formal here, and I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to answer it in order to be as precise and helpful to you as I possibly can be. So here's the first question. Will parents be required to purchase the iPad? I suspect that's crossed your mind at some point. The answer is no. The school will provide each student with an iPad, charger, case, application, and digital textbooks. The only cost parents will have is required insurance premium of $40 per year for the device. That's it. The school is going to provide everything that's needed for the students. Who owns the iPads, applications, and accessories? Well, as you would expect the school does, the iPads will be updated on a predetermined refresh cycle as deemed appropriate by the school administrators. So we're providing them to the students, and the school will own those and will refresh them on a predetermined basis. Will the iPads be insured? And I've already addressed that to some degree. Parents will be required to purchase insurance. Parents will be billed an annual fee of $40 for the protection plan. Now, I've got good, even better news for you. For those of you participating in the pilot, you don't even have to pay insurance. All right, so there's no cost to you from January through May. So we're providing everything that's going to be needed for you and for your children. And by the way, I don't know if you understand how unprecedented that is, that we're able to do that. But that's because the Lord has, in very unusual ways, blessed the school. And we're always reminding ourselves that we've been blessed in order to be a blessing. And in this case, a blessing to you and to your children. And so we're able to do this without additional cost. There are no technology fees, anything at all. We're able to do this because the school is now debt-free. And we're using some of the monies that we used to pay for debt to fund this program for your children. So that's what we're doing. What happens if my child breaks an iPad, is lost or stolen? That will never happen, so we can move on. All right? No. All right. BCS will maintain a loaner pool of iPads if a student iPad is lost or being repaired. And I'll come back to this here in just a moment. But basically, we're going to have a certain number of iPads always available in our IT department. And every iPad has its own student ID, and it belongs to an individual student, and everything's backed up to the cloud. So let's say something happens. They drop it in the tub. They've misplaced it. Or, Lord forbid, someone takes it, all right? They go to the IT department. Mr. Westbrook hands them a new iPad, puts in their ID information. All their stuff is reloaded on the iPad, and we hand it back to the student, and they continue to work, all right? And since I have this one, by the way, we're providing everything you need. There is one or two accessories that you can purchase if you would like, separately. If your student would like to have a built-in Bluetooth keyboard, you can buy a case that has a built-in keyboard if they would prefer that. They range in price. They're generally around $99 for the keyboard. Most of your students will not want a stylus, but you could purchase an inexpensive stylus as well if you would like to do that. So we will be able to provide loaner iPads to students should something happen. What is to prohibit someone from stealing iPads when students do not have their iPads with them? A couple of things here. One, each iPad will have a unique ID. We have added security cameras on this campus, many of which the students don't even know where they are. And thirdly, iPads will be locked in rooms during lunch periods and PE periods. And a couple of things let me add to this too, by the way, and that is this. There are some times we don't want the students using their iPad. And let me give you two cases. When they go to lunch, we don't want them staring at a screen. We want them talking to each other and fellowshipping and enjoying lunch. So they are not permitted to take their iPad into lunch. They're also, at this point, the plan is they won't take them into chapels. Now, that's a mixed bag because on the one hand, it's got the Bible on it, right? But we want them paying attention to the speaker and not doing homework or something else they might do with the iPad. And so the plan right now is they do not also bring them into chapel services. And when they're in PE, they're also kept locked in their rooms. So those are some of the measures we've taken to help mitigate those possibilities. Is there a maintenance plan on the iPad? What happens if we need Apple support? Whom do we call? BCS will be responsible for maintenance of the device. Students will need to contact the IT help desk at that email address there, and they bring the device to the IT department, and they suspect maintenance is needed. A loaner iPad will be provided to the student. So bottom line is, you don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it for you. All right. Will students have all of the applications they need on the iPad, or will parents have to purchase applications? Parents will not need to purchase additional software or hardware. Student iPads come preloaded with everything needed for school use. Will each iPad be issued specifically to my child, or are the iPads interchangeable? They are not interchangeable. Each device will have a unique student ID assigned to each student. Can my child use the iPad for personal use as well as school use? Yes, students may use the iPads for both personal and school use. Now, there's one question I probably need to answer. We've got a pilot, so there's only 3 classes of students with iPads with 3 teachers. Your children have more than 3 teachers. So the question is, can your child use the school-issued iPad in a non-iPad class during the pilot? And the answer is yes. If the student would like to use it, take notes in that class or whatever, they're more than welcome to do it. Now, the teacher won't be using an iPad in that class to teach necessarily, but the student's welcome to use his or her iPad as they would like in any of the classes. Will my child be, Will my child be able to keep the iPad over the summer, spring break, and Christmas? Yes, students may keep the devices throughout the school year, but they are to turn them in during the summer for maintenance and updating at the end of the school year. So they can have them all during the course of the school year, including during breaks. Will my student keep the same iPad until he or she graduates? The expected lifespan of the iPad is about 3 years, so the iPad will carry on with the student, and then at the end of the 3-year or whatever the refresh cycle is, they'll be issued another iPad. So the iPad basically moves along with them, and then they're issued a new one when it's time. Will internet security and filtering be available for the iPad at school and home? Now, what I'm about to share with you is unique, as far as I know at this point, to Briarwood. We are one of the very first schools in the nation to answer the question this way. Yes, that is, we're going to filter the iPad not only at school, but also at home. We've installed enterprise-level security called WebSense Triton Mobile for filtering and monitoring on and off campus. Most schools do this. They say, here's an iPad. We filter it while they're at school. When they go home, it's your responsibility. Now, you still have a responsibility, but we've installed the software so no matter, they can go to the coffee shop, they can go to Starbucks, they can go to your house, they can go to grandma's house, they can be on school campus, and the software works exactly the same way to filter and monitor everything that's occurring on the iPad. In addition to that, we've removed the browser, so they will not open up a browser and just do random internet searches. Applications cannot be added or removed, so they cannot add War of Warcraft or Halo or who knows what on their iPads. They're locked down, and only what the school has installed is the only thing they can put on it, and they can't delete the applications either. So if they don't like the Formula app, they're stuck with it. All right? Instant messaging is disabled as well, and iTunes is available. We do want them to be able to have music and videos, but it's filtered, so nothing past PG can be downloaded through iTunes. What, if any, are the restrictions of what they still can be downloaded personally? I just answered that question essentially, in that iTunes is filtered. So we do want them to have access to certain music and things for their video productions and presentations for class, but again, we will continue to filter that as well. Will students be able to instant message? The answer I've already given is no. Can other apps be downloaded? No, students are not able to install or delete applications. How will we prevent jailbreaking or modifying the operating system? The security software prevents jailbreaking of the iPad, and any attempts at resetting the iPad to try to bypass the security system will generate an automatic instant report to the IT department and to the administrators. So if they try to reset their iPad to try to bypass security, we get an email saying, Joey tried to bypass the system, and it locks him out of the network, so he or she can't get into the school network, and we're going to know this instantly. We'll share the email with you, and the student will lose access to the iPad. They will be handed a legal pad, a pencil, and a book for at least a specified period of time. And so this is very secure, and basically it's monitoring what they're doing. If they try to type in inappropriate words, they try to bully another student or whatever by email or something like that, it generates a report that goes to our IT department. So we even know that if that occurs. What textbooks will be available on the iPad, what textbooks will not be available. The iPad will be issued with a selection of pre-installed textbooks. You saw some of those this evening, and we will continue to expand the use of textbooks as high-quality textbooks, digital textbooks come online. But we're going to run for a period of time two rails on this track. We're always going to maintain the print versions as we adopt electronic versions. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is the student may just say, you know what, I just prefer a regular book. And you know what? That's okay if that's the case. Now we think there are more features, we think there are great advantages to digital textbooks, but if they want to use the print version for whatever reason, they'll have access to it. Plus, there are some textbooks that are not yet available in digital form, or they're available digitally, but they don't meet the high standards that we want, and so we're not going to adopt them just because they're digital. They still have to meet our expectations before we use them. Can students access and send email on the iPad? Yes, each student will be assigned a BCS email address, but this is important. Only email addresses originating with the BCS email address can be sent or received. So here's what that means. They cannot receive emails from out there from just anybody. It has to come from a Briarwood email address. So that prevents all kinds of emails coming from spammers, and everyone else. We've all gotten those kinds of emails, and they can only use their school email address from the iPad to send to other people with a school address. The idea is that this is an educational school device. That's what it's designed for, and it's designed to be restricted for that purpose. So that adds a layer of security and safety for our students by restricting it to our own email addresses. Will teachers understand how to use the iPads? Yes. Teachers have received extensive training from Apple certified teachers, BCS IT staff, customized iBooks created for teachers, and supplemental training. And in addition to that, it's important to understand that teachers move through a certain process or sequence in using technology for the classroom, and it looks something like this. I'm not going to go into all of this, but you'll have some teachers further along this process than others, but they're all being trained and they're all moving along that sequence. The lowest level is what's called substitution. I used to use a legal pad and a pen to take my notes. Now I use a digital notebook. That's not transformative. That's merely a substitution of one form of technology for a different technology. The objective is to move up this scale progressively with training experience so that a lot of things become modifications and redefinitions where they can do things in a classroom using technology that's not possible without the technology. Can I give you an example of that? Let's say they're teaching Spanish. Wouldn't it be great to connect through live video conference with Spanish students in other countries to practice their Spanish? Or we offer Mandarin Chinese. We already do this in Chinese class, where they will speak with students in China in a Chinese school. And the Chinese students practice their English, our students practice their Mandarin. That's the sort of thing that would be a redefinition, things you couldn't do without the technology. Will the iPads run out of battery power by the 7th period? It's problematic, of course, if you have an iPad and you get after lunch and you have no more power. The good news here is that iPads have a battery life of 8 to 10 hours. There will be charging station, power strips, and loaner batteries available should they become necessary, and students are expected to come to school with a fully charged iPad. Now that is a discipline, a 21st century skill that they need to have. They do not want to walk into a college lecture hall with their laptop and take their notes and the battery be dead. They need to learn this skill now, that if you're using technology, you've got to have it ready. But things happen. So we're going to have portable battery packs available in the classrooms. We'll have some charging stations available throughout the campus, and we'll have some power strips in the classrooms as well. So we have some backup systems, but we don't want students to become dependent on this, because the idea here is to teach them to be responsible and to learn good habits. But the good news is the iPad will last 8 to 10 hours. Here's the other great thing. There's nothing real exciting on the iPad that's going to cause them to constantly use it other than for school use. There's no Facebook, there's no Twitter, there's no emailing, there's no instant messaging. There's really not a whole lot they're going to want to play with unless they just really want to study. And so my guess is that it's going to last the full day without ever having to worry about a charge at all. But we have backup just in case it should be needed for our students. How do we prevent teachers from continually being sidetracked by technology-related problems? Well, the advantage of the iPad is that it's simple to use and reliable. Most users experience few technical difficulties once they learn basic operations and the applications. And as I've already mentioned, they're receiving extensive training, and we have very fast IT support. You'll notice, by the way, this is a fairly complex thing we're doing up here. We have 2 iPads connected to our system. We're disconnecting, reconnecting them. We're running live video and not had any problems. It's worked seamlessly. That's one of the great advantages of the iPad. However, IT support's important. That's why Mr. Westbrook is sitting right there. If something happens, he's here to help me. All right? Well, that's what we want to do with teachers. We want to have just-in-time tech support for when they need it so that the technology moves out of the way, gets out of the way, and the focus remains on teaching and learning in their classrooms. Will the iPads have cellular connectivity? And the answer is no. There's a reason for that, because if they have as I indicated earlier, if you have a smartphone and cell connection, you do not have internet filtering. And so we're not going to provide that for that reason. Plus, we don't want to be paying all those data plans. All right, so it's a Wi-Fi only device. All right, now there's a whole lot more I could say. Let me take one more observation, and I'm going to see if you have any questions. We debated for some time as to whether or not we should use laptops or iPads. There are advantages to both, so we're going to utilize both, but in different ways. The main reason we wanted to, there are 2 main reasons to use the iPad. The form factor is conducive to long-term reading and note-taking, whereas the laptop is not. I'll read some of the laptop when I'm researching or whatever, but I won't sit and read a novel on a laptop. But I'll sit for hours reading on an iPad. And that's important if a student's reading a textbook or a novel in literature. So we wanted a form factor that was conducive for that. It's also light, portable, etc. It's got a much longer battery life. So that's one of the reasons why we chose the iPad. But in addition to that, as you can see right here, we have multiple mobile carts of MacBooks available for classroom teachers if they want to do more extensive work. Now, this is not a promise, but something we intend to explore is, let's say that you don't have a Mac at home, and they're doing a very complex project that requires more horsepower than an iPad will provide. We are contemplating the possibility, it's not a promise, of them checking out a MacBook Air from our library to take home to do that work and then check it back into the library the next day. All right? So we're looking at different ways to make sure that they have all the tools that they might need.